You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify, and like Stables Media on Facebook. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. Taylor Phillips and Ed Smith, just us two again for the second week in a row. My opening statement, the Blake Griffin era is finally over for the Pistons, who can continue with their rebuild. Ed, what is your opening statement?
My opening statement for this week is the preamble is over. The time for talk is done. Now it's time for the real work to begin as we near the beginning of the start of not just the Big Ten, but the NCAA National Men's Tournament for both Michigan and possibly even Michigan State.
Michigan State just lost earlier to Maryland. But Michigan State, I still think they can get in. But that's our opening statement segment. Before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports mobile app, VigIt. Enter the referral code STABLES for Stables Media when you sign up. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code STABLES, capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle, for 1,000 free Vig coins. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. Let's start with the Lions here. Our top story, they will not put the franchise tag on wide receiver Kenny Golladay or defensive end Romeo Okwara, meaning they will become free agents. So two valuable pieces turning down contracts that they could get paid huge money, but the Lions offered them. But Kenny Golladay and Romeo Okwara turned them down, and then they tried to put the franchise tag on them, but Kenny Golladay and Romeo Okwara decided not to take it, so Golladay and Okwara become free agents. So, Ed, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, it doesn't surprise me, or at least in the sense of Kenny Golladay, or even in terms of Romeo Okwara. Number one, let's go back to what you're talking about in terms of financial aspects of this. This is a money saver, because when you factor in that the Lions had to take on a cap hit just from trading Matthew Stafford, not to mention taking on Jared Goff's contract, as well as what the salary cap, what their cap was going to be looking like, and now knowing, that the NFL is going to be setting their salary cap at around $182 million. Knowing the Lions where they were at, in fact, in some instances before they started making these moves, they were slightly over. And now, in terms of between letting Golladay go, letting Okwara go, and I believe even restructuring Jamie Collins' deal, they had to make these cost-cutting moves. So this is not only a rebuild move in terms of scrubbing off the remnants of the Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn era. This is also a money-saver move as well. So that way you won't be in cap hell or paying any type of penalty or luxury tax, whatever the case may be. In the case of Golladay, it doesn't really surprise me. We've been alluding and building up to this for a while. Even during the season, there were talks of, hey, are they going to give him the money that he wants or wants to ask for? Or do they believe he's even worth that much money to begin with? Because while there is talent there, yes, there is, and loads of potential, absolutely, we didn't quite see enough of it in 2020. And I'm not even talking about in regards to the pandemic. Golladay was hurt more often than not, whether it be hip injuries or whether the case may be, mainly his hip. We just didn't see enough of them on the field.
And stay healthy.
Exactly. So that's going to be a red flag to a team if you're saying, oh, yeah, you want us to pay you $15-18 million a year, but you're not able to stay on the field for an extended period of time. Not to mention, you want to go even deeper in terms of advanced metrics, saying he had trouble in terms of creating separation from cornerbacks compared to the other high caliber receivers in the league. You can go with that. But to me, this was more so a money saver move, a rebuild move, and also a chance to say, knowing that the injury flags are there, it's just not worth all that money or time if you're the Lions. Not to mention, Kenny Golladay is not going to be the only available wide receiver in this upcoming free agency class. You have loads of talent that's going to be available, whether it be they're going to be franchise tagged or not. Names I'm just throwing out there. I have absolutely little to no confidence that, or any hints rather, that the Lions are going to be in contention to pick them up. But the names out there, Antonio Brown, he's a free agent. Emmanuel Sanders, another free agent. There is one more name that's escaping me at the moment, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. There's going to be loads of free agents, wide receivers available, not just in free agency, but also most importantly, especially if you want to be even more assured with your cost-cutting measures in the draft. And if you're the Lions with that number 7 pick, just depending on who's available and what decision or direction you want to go, say you want to build around Jared Goff, I think it'll be imperative if the belief is you're going to go long-term with Jared Goff, you want to give him a wide receiver, one that you know is going to be here for at least a good number of years. So that being said, there is a good chance you may take a wide receiver at number 7. And I'm seeing guys like Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. Those two names, conveniently both from Alabama, those two names immediately come to mind for sure. But like I said, the point being, between that and knowing what you could potentially get in free agency for way less than what you could have gotten in terms of paying money to Kenny Golladay, that alone speaks to me why this doesn't surprise me as to why he and Detroit are parting ways.
Yeah. And by the way, the Lions have proven that they are ready for free agency and the NFL draft. And here's how. They made a couple releases earlier this week. They released starting linebacker Christian Jones to free up $2.5 million in cap space. And they have released cornerback Justin Coleman earlier today to free up $5 million, according to NFL Network. So that's a total of $7.5 million freed up in that particular span.
And not to mention the fact they are apparently not bringing back Desmond Trufant either as well. So
they released him too.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's going to be a cap hit on them or they're going to be saving money, but still, the point remains, it's a combination of what I've been mentioning earlier about you're saving money to keep yourself under the cap and also to work with what you got with all these restructuring and cuts that you're making. But also, it's a rebuild. This is a new regime, again, which means you got to tear it all down again. You traded Stafford. Golladay is going to be gone.
Goff in return.
Right, you got Jared Goff in return. I don't believe Marvin Jones is coming back either. So knowing
almost like a total overhaul of a rebuild, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. It's a complete tear down / rebuild at the same time. So knowing all that and taking that into consideration, hearing about this doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. So from what I've heard, the Lions have freed up a total of around up to $9 million in cap space, including the release of Trufant, like you mentioned before, Ed. So there's that. We'll keep your eyes on that as the offseason rolls along. Pistons, right now, they trail the Charlotte Hornets 97-96. So High Glasser, foul before the shot, I think, unless they're going to count it. 1:14 to go fourth quarter. They count it. It's a High Glasser good and one for Rozier the third. He'll try to make it 100 points for the Hornets with a 3-point play. Pistons, they lost Blake Griffin to the Brooklyn Nets after he cleared waivers. So, like I mentioned in my opening segment to begin the show, Blake Griffin cleared waivers. Pistons bought him out. He became a free agent, signed with the Brooklyn Nets for the rest of the season. Now, here's a new segment that we like to call the Crystal Ball. How much longer is Blake Griffin going to stay with the Nets? Or is he going to sign with another team starting next season?
I believe Blake Griffin, obviously, he'll play out the remainder of this season with Brooklyn. I don't know for certain if he'll be back with them next year, depending on, obviously, it depends on what they do in the playoffs, presuming they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and even beyond that, the NBA Finals, that there's still lots of what-ifs and hypotheticals for even that scenario. Because remember, around this time last year, so many people were saying, watch out for the Clippers, watch out for the Clippers. And then, of course, you know what happened. They blew a 3-1 lead in the second round and didn't even get to the conference finals to face the Lakers. So knowing that and knowing how anything can almost happen, especially in the NBA, I'm not quite so ready to pencil in the Brooklyn Nets as for sure, the team to beat in the East, let alone the entire NBA, because A, I have concerns about their defense, and this was after the James Harden trade and even long before they brought in Blake Griffin, and also injuries, because Kyrie Irving has injury history, Kevin Durant has injury history, and now you're bringing in a guy, Blake Griffin, who knows, God knows, the backlog, what he carries in terms of his injury history. So those factors alone have me concerned about Brooklyn's title chances. They should probably still be the favorites in the East, though I would say don't sleep on the Celtics. That's just my opinion. But in terms of this season and for next year, I think it depends, because the Lakers, even though they won the championship, they had to let go of some pieces. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo amongst those. So I could see a similar situation where even if the Nets did win the championship, I don't know if they would have the flexibility or the cap space to keep this specific roster together for next year, especially when you consider the fact that Blake is already going to get $50 million in this buyout from the Pistons alone, and he's just getting a veteran's minimum deal to come to Brooklyn. It could be a similar situation to where if he feels that he wants more playing time or a bigger space or role in another team, regardless, especially if it is with a contender, does he want to stay with Brooklyn, where it could potentially become more and more crowded, or does he venture out somewhere else? So that remains to be seen. I would lean more towards Blake may not be with Brooklyn long term. If not by next season, then definitely by the season after that.
Well, not to mention staying healthy. Blake Griffin has had a tough time staying healthy with the Pistons before their buyout of him.
I mean, you got to give him credit. Remember, when 2019, when the Pistons last made the playoffs before they got swept by Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, Blake willed himself through injury, because you know how hurt he was throughout that point, and he still willed himself to get that team into the playoffs. So Blake can definitely bring it if need be, but at this point of his career, you still have questions and some doubts about it, because remember, I think even Max Kellerman brought this out. Blake Griffin has not done a dunk in 2 years. 2 years.
2 years. Wow. Okay. Long time.
I appreciate him trying to change up his game, add more jump shots and three-point shooting to his repertoire, even though it may be a bit below accurate. At least it shows his abilities as a basketball player to not only expand upon his game, but also recognize, hey, these are the little things, the little changes you got to do if you want to stay a long-term deal, not just in the league, but also compete for championships. Because Blake, I believe, right, the closest, the highest he's ever gotten in the playoff round was in the second round with the Clippers, and we all know how that ended for him. So it still remains to be seen.
Yeah, him playing through injury, let me touch on that real quickly. We understand his passion, but sometimes better safe than sorry. Just like any athlete, especially the veterans, like Blake Griffin. Hornets now up 105 to 100. 9.1 seconds left, and there's Michael Jordan clapping. We all know him. Everyone knows Michael Jordan, of course. The whole world knows Michael Jordan, but
he's clapping because he's going to get a chance to get another win on the Pistons.
Yep.
He took it personal.
We all know that, though. We all know the old Piston bad boy rivalry with the Chicago Bulls from back in the day, from the late 80s to the early 90s, if you know what I mean. 91 particularly. Man. Yeah,
basically from 88 to 91. That was a brutal stretch. Eventually Jordan, of course, came out. But I will say, I think the late Brian Burrell, mentioned in that Bad Boys documentary, without those beatings and those losses and those lessons that Jordan had to learn to just overcome the Pistons, I don't think he would have become the Michael Jordan we all know had he not gone through those wars with the Bad Boys. So there's something to be said in that regard.
Good point. Exactly. Nothing going on with the Red Wings except the NHL and ESPN have agreed to a 7-year media rights deal And I heard they're bringing Gary Thorne back, not to get off the local format tangent here, but shocking that considering at least I thought Gary Thorne was going to stay retired after announcing Major League Baseball's Baltimore Orioles of all teams in sports.
Well, I do remember seeing a clip being, it had to have been in recent years. I don't know if this was last season or the season before, but he did do at least a hockey call. I think it was a Buffalo Sabres game. And he still sounded as sharp as ever. I know we're getting off topic a little bit slightly, but when you consider about it and think about it, Gary Thorne with his signature calls has been a soundtrack to many a memorable, nostalgic Red Wing moment in history. Where you think about the Steve Yzerman double OT goal, or the Stanley Cup championship wins,
or the rivalry between the Red Wings and the Avalanche, for goodness sake.
Absolutely.
The brawl.
Exactly.
He and Brian Ingleblom called that game on March 26, 1997 on ESPN2, and I have the video on YouTube from user AWood40.
Yeah, another quick fun fact. Around that time, the Red Wings play-by-play local announcer before they went to Ken Daniels, it was Mike
Goldberg.
Exactly, who would eventually go on to call fights for the UFC for many, many years. So I guess you could say that was his introduction to the realm of the fight game, so to speak, because he was on the call for that night at the Joe with the brawl with the Avs.
Yeah, on Past Sports. What was Past Sports?
But going back to what you think about the NHL ESPN deal, I'm happy about it, but I'll even be more happy about it if A, like you said, bring back Gary Thorne, B, bring back Bill Clement as his color commentary partner, C, bring back the theme song, and since you still have people at that station that knows what the hell they're talking about in regards to hockey, I would love to see the Steve Levy's, people like Steve Levy, people like John Buccigross, and people like Linda Cohn be your featured premier perennial hockey analysis people, because God knows they need it, because I think this could be a good deal in terms of getting more exposure, helping out the NHL reconnect more with the broader casual audience, and which in turn could, help out ESPN as well. So I approve of this deal, absolutely. But in terms of the Red Wings, going back to them real briefly, in terms of what's going on this week, it's the same old third period woes that sunk their chances against the Hurricanes and the Lightning. They are doing a little bit better tonight. Either a 4-2 or 5-2 lead at the moment, midway through the second.
It's a 5-2 lead after 2. The second period just came to an end.
Perfect, thank you. So, again, they may be on their way to a win there, but it's still not good enough, to the point where I believe it was an article on ESPN Plus that mentioned that I would presumably mention Jeff Blashill as severely on the hot seat, which is no surprise. We have talked about this ad nauseum on this program about should Steve Yzerman potentially consider firing Jeff Blashill before the season ends. I'm starting to believe more and more that Steve will not do that. He will just let his contract expire, and then it will move on from then and there, because this is the last year of Blashill's deal. So I'm expecting that to happen. And there was also another article that touched on the subject of Darren Helm somehow still being here, when you consider the fact that all the guys that left and came and left again between his rookie year, which I believe was the year they won the Cup in 2008, to now, when he has outlasted guys like Datsuk and Lidstrom and Zetterberg.
I saw that article too.
And even Valtteri Filppula, even though Filppula came back, it's astonishing. It speaks to, I believe, the loyalty program that Ken Holland had, number one. I think that goes without saying. And two, it just shows that there may not be anywhere else for him to go at this point, because if you look at his numbers and his performance, and also take into consideration that injuries did hamper his career severely, Darren Helm is just not the same player that he used to be, and it's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Yep, the Michigan sports truth, that is.
I got a friend who I talked to on the regular, big Red Wings fan, loves Darren Helm. She mentioned about how she was one of his favorite players, but even I had to be honest with her. Listen, I know you love Helmer, but he's just not the player that he used to be, and she at least acknowledged it. So it goes to show you of how time waits for no one.
There you go. At least there's someone that admits some truth.
I admire your honesty.
Spread the word if you can. Yeah, have her spread the word if you can. Yeah, And going back to the ESPN talents that used to cover NHL hockey in the past, don't forget about Barry Melrose.
Absolutely. How could I forget about the hair?
One more thing I'd like to touch on in terms of the on-air talents. What if they collaborate all the ESPN talents with the NBCSN talents that can come into ESPN, such as Eddie Olczyk and John Forsland and other play-by-play announcers such as, say, Gord Miller, Chris Cuthbert, Kenny Albert, anybody?
I don't know, because it depends on, A, the money that could be involved in bringing those talents in, B, whether or not those specific on-air talents already have deals locked up with other places. Doesn't Kenny Albert may have something with the Rangers? He's got to deal with the Rangers, I believe. Eddie Olczyk, I don't know, possibly. God, imagine if they brought in Pierre McGuire. I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing.
Pierre McGuire's an imbecile.
But it'll get people talking, and probably get them to want to watch and see, oh, great, what is he doing now? But that's always a possibility. I mean, it's a fair point, but we got to see more details that come out. All we know is that the deal's been made. ESPN will be featuring hockey again, primarily, and they'll be getting 4 chances of broadcasting the Stanley Cup final. I'm still used to saying finals instead of final, but okay. Between next year, 2022, and 2028.
Yeah, and remember when ESPN and ABC covered the Stanley Cup finals back in those days? Yeah, I think they're going to share in between years between ESPN and ABC.
That could be a possibility, too, when you consider the fact that ABC and ESPN, they're both under that Disney umbrella. And we used to see, like you mentioned before, we saw that for years. Like when the Red Wings, they clinched at least their 98, if I'm not mistaken, their 97. Right, their 97 and their 98 cups, they won
on ESPN.
They won those on ESPN, and then 2002, it was on ABC. That I can remember.
With Dominik Hasek, Luke Robitaille, and Brett Hull. That was my favorite year of all years, for crying out loud.
That was probably the best, I'll go out and say it, that was the best put-together NHL team money could have ever bought of all time. Mike Ilitch knew exactly what he was doing. He had the money to do it. He was tired and irritated of missing out because it was going on 3 or 4 years since they last won the Cup.
Especially being knocked out in the first round.
By the freaking kings of all teams. So, yeah, things had to change. So
the injuries to Yzerman and Shanahan affected that series. In that first round.
And not to mention bad goaltending. So there was okay, we got the money. We got the money. Let's do it. So let's build a super team. That's what the Red Wings did in 2002.
That's the way to do it.
They created a super team. They did it far better than what Mike Glenville could ever do in the mid '90s with the Blues. So there you go. And of course, they got themselves a Stanley Cup out of that one, which was the main goal. And while at the same time, you still featured young guys in their fledgling careers, such as a young baby Pavel Datsyuk on that 2002 team. I don't think even Zetterberg was there yet. Datsyuk was there first before Zetterberg, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Zetterberg came after the 0-2 Cup clincher, right after. Yeah. Red Wings lead the Lightning 5-2. Shots are 28-18 Lightning. They were 15-6 Lightning after one. No joke. We counted the stats from the NHL.com, the NHL mobile app counted the stats. So that's Red Wings. So let's transition back to basketball at this time in the college level. How about that Michigan State doubleheader before the Big Ten tournament? I know Michigan State lost in that Big Ten tournament the first round against Maryland, 68-57. But let's go over that doubleheader. Michigan in that first game doing what they usually do, but then Michigan State and East Lansing coming out for some revenge. Tom Izzo pretty pissed off, and things just changed in that second game of the doubleheader. And not to mention Eli Brooks out with an ankle injury very early in that game this past Sunday, which pretty much turned the tide in this matchup because Michigan kind of lost a lot of firepower since then.
They had tremendous troubles in terms of moving the ball and setting things up because the way Eli Brooks facilitates as that on-floor general for them. Now, Mike Smith, to his credit, and other guys like Sean D. Brown, amongst others, did a great job stepping up in his place. And even it was good to see Hunter Dickinson and Franz Wagner wake up in the second half, at least contribute with double-digit points, because at the first half, I think that they both combined for like 5. Dickinson getting in the foul trouble again. So I think you're starting to see a pattern in a blueprint of teams. Like, if you want a blueprint on how to beat Michigan, one big key would be to get Hunter Dickinson in trouble, because Austin Davis, to me, in my view, is the whole mood and shifts completely when Austin Davis comes on the floor as compared to Hunter Dickinson. You get more versatility with Dickinson, the way he moves in the paint, way he draws attention, so on and so forth. You just don't get that type of threatening presence with Austin Davis. So that's one big key to look out for there. Wagner, it was very concerning to see him have his first half struggles. Now eventually he turned it around, but I was a little bit too little too late. If he starts hitting his shots early, or rather does not start hitting his shots early more often, Michigan could be in trouble in terms of the Big Ten tournament or in the national tournament. I will say, in regards to Michigan State, it was good to see Aaron Henry get some freaking backup and help for once, at least in regards to Rocket Watts. The performance that he had against the Wolverines, he had like 20 or 21 points. Tremendous output from him, and with it being on senior day, last game of the season, well, one of the last games of the season, and one of those final chances to help impress the selection committee, knowing that MSU was one of those bubble teams. Yeah, you had to believe Izzo was going to have them fired up and ready to go for this game, and all credit and hats off to them. They played exceptional defense. They never lost focus or control. And even when Michigan tried to turn it on late, which again, too little too late as far as I'm concerned with their offense, MSU did not let that bother them. They made their free throw shots. They played it smart, and they got the win. Now, I do think that Maryland loss did hurt when you consider the fact that they beat Ohio State, they beat Illinois, and now they beat Michigan in terms of the teams that they faced in their last few games.
That's three top 5 teams.
Exactly. And if they don't flame out in the Big Ten tournament, if they're not a one and done, if they at least get to that or second or third round against Michigan, since that's how the bracket is lined up. Let's say they face Michigan in a rubber match and they don't win, but they play them real close. I think that could soften up the selection committee to an extent to where MSU will be one of those bubble teams where if they're not one of the last 4 in, they'll be that group that precedes that. So
yes,
again, this is what I kept saying. Tom Izzo, the fact that this was not a season for him to remember for all intents and purposes, for many facets, he still has what it takes to get his players up and ready for when the moment matters. And when you know that they're just coming off of, like, this season marks for like the 6th time in the past 9 years that either Michigan or Michigan State won a share or flat out outright won the Big Ten title. So this was far different than what we saw in the last few years for MSU football under D'Antonio. Completely different. And when you factor in that Izzo does have a solid recruiting class coming in, headlined by Imani Bates, this bet, like I've tried to say before, and I think Frank even made an allusion to it before, the basketball program's not going anywhere. Not anytime soon.
Frank Vashner, that is. Correct. Yes. And Michigan State lost to Maryland, like I mentioned before, the Terrapins in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, 68-57. Marwin Hall with 19 points. Wow. In a losing effort. But speaking of ESPN Plus articles, I ran into one earlier today that Michigan State should be fine heading into the big dance despite losing to Maryland because, like we mentioned before, they beat 3 top 5 teams in the NCAA.
Yeah,
one of them being Illinois.
Yeah, and they did it in the toughest conference in America, bar none. And when you factor in that, I think had it not been for that loss to MSU, Michigan would have been number 3. They would have been number 3 behind Illinois and ahead of Baylor. That's why you saw them at number 4 in the AP rankings this week.
Yes. So
now, as for Eli Brooks, I'm trying to find the latest update I can find on his injury.
I've never heard any updates on him.
Yeah, he was in a walk. Yeah, he was like SaturdayTradition.com reported that he was in a walking boot on Wednesday. So this will make Michigan. They start in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament tomorrow against Maryland.
11:30 tip-off a.m.
So I doubt Eli Brooks will be available for that game. I could see but I do see him potentially being available. In fact, I could see him missing the entire Big Ten tournament. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Juwan Howard makes that decision in terms of keeping his guy, wanting to have him ready and not risk anything before the big dance starts. So that is within the realm of possibility as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, at the same time, though, they'll cost Michigan like the same kind of firepower they had with Eli Brooks on the court. Like I mentioned before in Sunday's game, Eli Brooks left with that ankle injury. But yeah, like you pointed out, better safe than sorry, like I said before too.
And also, you need better production and better starts from your three-headed monster. Okay, I mentioned it before with your big three. It's Hunter Dickinson, it's Franz Wagner, it's Isaiah Livers. Dickinson and Wagner had a horrible first half. Isaiah Livers was almost non-existent with his performance.
They really need to step it up.
Exactly. So
they need to get over that.
If that big three can step up, then the impact of Eli Brooks' injury will be minimal.
Overcoming adversity, whether it's injuries or other stuff like that. It'll be interesting. 11:30, I believe it's on the Big Ten Network. I'll probably miss that game because I'll be at work. But hopefully, I can actually record this on the way to Ithaca while calling play-by-play for a high school girls basketball game, by the way, locally in mid to lower Michigan. But anyway, good luck to the Wolverines without Eli Brooks. Crystal Ball segment sponsored by the Viget app. All segments that we do, whether we just make them up or keep the old ones, such as What's Your Grade in 5 Questions, sponsored by the Viget app. Referral code STABLES, capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle for Stables Media to get 1,000 free VIG coins. My crystal ball is telling me Michigan still wins the whole thing heading into the big dance, even without Eli Brooks. I mean, it sounds like it doesn't make too much sense now, but Michigan State either makes it or makes it to the NIT, either makes it to the big dance or makes it to the NIT. I'd say the Spartans would make the big dance. Like I said, when I read that ESPN Plus article about Michigan State, I think the Spartans still have a shot. But for the Wolverines, I thought they were going to get Eli Brooks sooner. But like you pointed out, he may miss the Big Ten tournament entirely. And that's, I know, better safe than sorry, but that's still going to cost them offensively. But Hunter Dickinson, Franz Wagner, and Isaiah Livers have to step up. I mean, so does Shawnee Brown. Everybody else has to step up. Everybody else has to step up offensively.
It's the next man up mentality. You have to come in with the belief that Eli Brooks is not going to be there, at least for this Maryland game, if not the whole entire Big Ten tournament. So it is next man up. Mike Smith, Shawnee Brown, everybody. Wagner, Livers, Dickinson, everyone. If I were to give my own input, my own crystal ball prediction, if you will, I believe MSU gets in probably as one of those last 4 teams in on the bubble. And Michigan will get to the Big Ten Tournament Conference Final. Now, I believe if they're facing Illinois again, they'll have their hands full because Illinois has been on fire these past couple of weeks. So if there's any team that could potentially spoil Michigan's run, whether it be in the Big Ten Tournament or perhaps even on the way towards the national championship, it will be the Fighting Illini. So my crystal ball, Michigan does get to the last Sunday for Selection Sunday for the Big Ten Championship Tournament, and MSU barely, they still get in for the big dance, and their streak continues.
Yeah, and don't forget the sleeper team, Minnesota, that beat Michigan 2 months ago in January in Minneapolis or St. Paul, whichever.
But the way they're seeded in the conference tournament, they will need a miracle run to get into the tournament. It's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, if Minnesota and Michigan ever met in this Big Ten tournament, just particularly in any round, I know Michigan's going to take on Maryland tomorrow late morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. But what if they run into Minnesota or Illinois? Then what would happen? Would Michigan seek revenge?
I would feel more confident against Minnesota than I would Illinois.
Yeah, good point. Just play better than you did the last meeting against each team. That's all you got to do.
Not to mention Ohio State's on that other side of that bracket too. They're going to want their revenge.
Oh, right. The Buckeyes are going to look for revenge.
If they meet up.
Yeah. Against Michigan, who beat them
Telling you, man,
in Columbus.
This Big Ten, they are loaded. We were saying this, they're going to be, for all season, this is going to be a bloodbath battle of a division, and you're seeing that play out.
Yes. Yeah, the competition always heats up in that Big Ten tournament every single year before that big dance in the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament. One other note to pass along before we call it a night. Tigers catcher Grayson Greiner expected to be out 1 week with a fractured nose. It's not broken. I don't know why the media keeps getting it wrong. Out 1 week with a fractured nose, not broken. Bunch of idiots out there. That he suffered when taking a 94-mile-an-hour fastball to the face in a 5-1 spring training win this past Sunday in Lakeland against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yikes.
At Publix Field at Joker Margin Stadium. That Tigers PR on Twitter said it was fractured. The media said it was broken. I'd still go with fractured because it's 1 out.
Right. If his nose is broken, he would be out longer than a week. Okay.
Much longer. Like, I don't know, 2 months or 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's called. You would be missing the start of the season, homeboy. If that were the case. Now, I did see him post an update on Twitter. Left side of his face is definitely swollen. You can see the the marking underneath his left eye, and swelling around his nose where he took that fastball. But other than that, he still looks to be on his way to recovery. I think he'll miss a little bit more than that week because I think they may have him undergo possible concussion protocol because remember, that was a 94-mile-per-hour fastball he took to the face. So that you always want to be on the lookout and concerned for that. He was at least trying to compete for the backup catcher spot. We know that Wilson Ramos will be the starting catcher for the season. But there's other guys, whether it be Jake Rogers, Dustin Garneau, Eric Haas. They were competing for that backup spot along with Greiner. And now this could be an opening or an opportunity for one of those guys to really stake their case to that backup catcher spot.
Yeah. And Grayson Greiner usually doesn't produce offensively.
No, he doesn't. But he was at least doing a little bit better with spring training. He was 3 for 4. He had an RBI. He got 4 walks. He drew 4 walks in 5 games. That's something you want to see. You want to see better patience and plate discipline from your batters. More productive at bats, which will A, tire out the pitcher, and B, give more opportunities for your offense to cash in with runners in scoring position, on base, RBI, so on and so forth. So that was the process and the progress that you wanted to see. And for his case, it sucks that he's going to miss some time because of that, because of this freak occurrence.
Right, but when he comes back, look out! Wow,
we'll see.
Yeah,
yet to be seen because, like I said, his numbers speak for himself and so far in regards to his career. So can't get too excited about what he could have brought to the table, especially again, he's competing for a backup catcher spot.
Yeah, just needs to keep proving it, needs to keep bringing it. Red Wings and Lightning started the third period already underway. 17:40 left, still 5-2 Wings, 29-18. I'm seeing whether or not they can falcon this one, choke it like 28-3 when the Atlanta Falcons lost in overtime in the Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 46 against the New England Patriots. We've seen 5 points, right, but most importantly, pull a Falcons. 28-3. Compare that to 5-2 right here.
Or just pull a Red Wings. We've documented ad nauseum over the years their tendency to have late game collapses in the third quarter. So the third period. So
back in time, they used to be called the Detroit Falcons. By the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because the amount of leads they would blow in the third period and overtime. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to hear that.
That's a nice ring to it.
By the way, FYI, I believe, let me check real quick. Yeah, Minnesota lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, 79-75. So, yeah, they're done. LSU moves on.
Yeah, Buckeyes were too much. Yeah, Minnesota's definitely out. Thank God for Michigan, but they still have Illinois to deal with it.
Don't say Maryland. Thank God. You still have to deal with either Illinois or Ohio State.
Right.
Conference title game.
Well, I actually, my mistake. I could have beaten Minnesota if I were Michigan. Just, again, play better. That's it.
Yeah, that's
even
all.
without Eli Brooks. Yeah. Even if you lose to Illinois, you still play better whether it's a barn burner or not. Well, it should be a barn burner, actually.
Right,
so,
these are
yeah.
two of the top 4 teams in the nation. It better be a barn burner. Much better than that crap we got last week.
Yeah. All right. So that's this week's episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. But before we go, once again, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports mobile app, VigIt. Enter the referral code STABLES, capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle, for Stables Media when you sign up. STABLES. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the letter B in the middle to get 1,000 free VIG coins. Spread the word about it to everybody, especially in Michigan, folks. Ed, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. We'll be back next week, Wednesday at 9 when Frank Vazner rejoins us. Until then, for tonight, for Ed Smith, on behalf of Frank Vazner and Darren Weiss, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips with 2 L's, and follow Ed Smith on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there, like it always is. So don't take our word for it. See for yourself. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power to the people. Hit it with a high. We rest our case. Stay safe.
Enjoy your stimulus checks, America.
Yes.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.